The year was 1692. Winter held Salem village in its icy grip. The world outside the small frosted windows was a wilderness of shadows. Whispers. Inside, the flicker of a candle was the only defense against the encroaching dark. In the home of Reverend Samuel Parris, something strange began to stir. A sickness unlike any the doctor had seen took hold of his daughter and niece. They convulsed. They cried out. They contorted into impossible shapes. They spoke in tongues not their own. The air filled with a nameless, ancient dread. No medicine could calm them. No prayer could reach them. Fits grew more violent. Screams grew more piercing. The village watched, hearts split between pity and terror. This was not a common illness. The doctor, out of answers, searched every cause. He found none. He whispered a word that hung like smoke. Witchcraft. The word landed on Puritan anxiety, a spark. It spread like contagion through the frigid streets. They believed the devil prowled the wilderness beyond. The afflicted were proof the enemy had breached their walls. The community tightened, hunting the source among them. The stage was set for tragedy. Salem village was a community wound tight with tension. It was not a happy place. It was a splintered settlement, full of disputes over land and status. Neighbors argued over property lines, grazing rights, church politics. The village was a satellite of the more prosperous Salem town, and its residents felt overlooked and resentful. They were farmers, living a hard life wrested from the unforgiving soil. They saw the merchants grow wealthy while they struggled. Grudges festered and envy poisoned relationships. Every shadow seemed to hide a grievance. Life was governed by a strict, unyielding Puritan faith. God was all-powerful and judgmental. The devil was a real and present danger. Every misfortune, a failed crop, a sick child, a lame cow, was not just bad luck. It could be a sign of God's displeasure, or worse, malice by the devil's agents on earth. This worldview left no room for coincidence. It demanded explanations. Supernatural answers were always close at hand. The villagers lived in constant spiritual anxiety, examining their own souls and their neighbors for any sign of sin. The political situation was just as unstable. The Massachusetts Bay Colony had lost its royal charter. Its government was in limbo. Without a secure legal framework, the people felt vulnerable. King William's War raged on the northern frontier, with tales of brutal attacks. Refugees streamed into Essex County, bringing horrifying stories of violence and loss. The world felt like it was crumbling. This perfect storm primed Salem as a powder keg of suspicion and fear, waiting for a spark. When Reverend Parris's daughter and niece began their terrifying fits, they were a manifestation of all the village's anxieties. The afflicted girls were under immense pressure. The adults towered over them. Ministers demanded an answer. Doctors demanded an answer. Neighbors demanded an answer. Who was hurting them? Who was sending their specter to pinch and choke them? At first, the girls were silent. But the questions were relentless, insistent. Finally, names were spoken. They were not the names of powerful men. They were the names of three women on the fringes of Salem society. The first was Tituba, the Parris family's enslaved servant from the Caribbean. Her stories of magic and strange gods had entertained the girls. Now, they made her an easy target. The second name was Sarah Good. She was a homeless beggar with a sullen disposition who muttered when refused. Villagers viewed her with suspicion, believing her muttering cursed cattle. She did not fit the pious mold. The third was Sarah Osborne, elderly and bedridden, embroiled in disputes over her late husband's estate. She had remarried an indentured servant, scandalizing the town. Like Sarah Good, she was unpopular. These three shared something in common. They were outsiders, lacking status, wealth, or male protection. Tituba, under intense questioning and likely coercion, confessed. Her confession was wild and terrifying. She spoke of signing the devil's book. She told of a black dog, a red cat, a yellow bird. She described flying through the night on a pole to attend witch meetings, and claimed there were others in Salem. Her confession lit the fuse. Fear turned abstract into concrete. It was no longer if there were witches, it was who and how many. The hunt had begun. So, Tituba's confession really opened the floodgates. The afflicted girls, now at the center of attention, began to see specters everywhere. Their accusations grew bolder. not just outcasts but respectable churchgoers. Martha Corey, pious yet skeptical, was accused. If Martha Corey could be accused, no one was safe. The circle of suspicion widened. Fear turned neighbors into spies. Even the smallest grudge became a deadly weapon. Magistrates like John Hathorne and Jonathan Corwin accepted spectral evidence as fact. How could anyone prove their spirit wasn't attacking someone while their body was elsewhere? Accusations spread to surrounding towns: Andover, Topsfield. The afflicted became a traveling spectacle. Families were torn apart. Children accused parents. Husbands accused wives. The fabric of trust was shredded. A climate of profound terror settled over the region. The legal process was a tragic mockery. Public examinations felt like theater. The magistrates assumed guilt. Their questions were leading and aggressive.
Why do you hurt these children?
If they confessed, they condemned themselves and were pressed to name others. If they denied, Fitz proved their guilt. They were stripped of property, dignity, and chained in filthy, crowded jails. Bridget Bishop, an outspoken tavern keeper, was the first hanged on June 10, 1692 at Gallows Hill. As the summer wore on, more followed. Reverend George Burroughs recited the Lord's Prayer perfectly, something a witch supposedly could not do. Still, he was hanged. 19 were hanged. Several, including Sarah Osborne, died in prison. Giles Corey, 81, refused to plead, hoping to keep his property for his sons. For his defiance, he was pressed under stones for 2 days.
His only response? More weight.
His death was a testament to utter cruelty and the profound failure of justice. By autumn, doubts surfaced. The net had reached too far, even to the governor's wife. Increase Mather publicly questioned spectral evidence. Governor William Phipps dissolved the special court and halted arrests. The madness subsided almost as quickly as it had begun, leaving a shattered community. The night the panic began in 1692 did not just end. It left a permanent scar on Salem's soul, a haunting legacy of what happens when fear, suspicion, and a failure of reason are allowed to reign.